start करें. Assalamu alaikum. I'm Dr. Lubna Ali from the Department of Gynae Unit 2, and today's topic is operative vaginal delivery and cesarean section. I think you have done it in clinical practice as well. So we'll be doing certain revision, and then inshallah when you'll be back on 14th, 15th September, maybe you'll get time to do some hands-on practice as well, where you will be able to see the instruments. So the objective of this topic, or you can define operative vaginal delivery, to understand indications, safety criteria, complications, contraindications of ventouse and forceps delivery. So operative vaginal delivery means the delivery via ventouse or forceps of a baby. Number 2, to understand the indications, procedure, complications of cesarean section. Operative vaginal delivery refers to a vaginal birth with the use of any types of forceps and vacuum extractor. The other name of vacuum extractor is ventouse. The incidence in UK is 10 to 15%. That means 10 to 15% of deliveries are conducted via the help of forceps and vacuum extractor. The indications may be fetal, it may be due to some fetal problems, or it may be due to maternal reason, or it can be both. The fetal indication includes suspected fetal compromise. That means if suppose you find that during labor the patient is fully dilated, and sometimes when the patient is fully dilated and there is no comorbid, so we allow them to give them at least 1 hour or 2 hours so that they deliver by itself. But in case if she is fully dilated and you find that the CTG is showing fetal compromise, or your sonicate is showing that the fetal heart sound is going up and down, so that will be called suspected fetal compromise. In that case, you can deliver her earlier with the help of ventouse or forceps. The maternal indications include prolonged active second stage of labor. That means when the patient is fully dilated and there is some time period when you can give her time to go for the pushing, such as a woman who's nulliparous or who is delivering, or this is her first baby, you can give her 2 hours once she is fully dilated without regional anesthesia. That means without epidural anesthesia. So if there is no comorbids, all is okay, means the liquor is clear, there is no comorbid such as diabetes, hypertension, the risk of IUGR, and she is fully dilated, although she has not taken epidural anesthesia, so you can leave her for 2 hours with monitoring of the fetal heart sound so that she pushes herself. And with anesthesia, with regional anesthesia, that means with epidural anesthesia, even 3 hours we can wait for a priming gravida. In multigravida, the time will be lesser. That is, with epidural anesthesia, you can wait 1 hour, and without epidural 1 hour, and with epidural 2 hours, because patients with epidural anesthesia may take longer time to push. So in case you find that patient is fully dilated more than this time period, then it is called prolonged active stage of labor, and then you have to do something. You need to deliver the baby either with the help of ventouse or the forceps. And so in sometimes you need to shorten the effect of second stage of labor in certain medical condition. So that means when the patient is fully dilated and the head has come down, or it is fully engaged, or the station is at +2, the baby is at perineum, then you have to shorten do not wait so that she pushes herself. But in certain medical condition, we do not want the patient to push by herself, such as in cardiac disease, the woman suffering from cardiac problem, hypertensive crisis, maybe she's having uncontrolled hypertension, maybe she's having eclampsia, myasthenia gravis, spinal cord injury, or cerebrovascular disease. So in these medical conditions, we want to shorten the effect of second stage of labor, and then we apply either vacuum or forceps to assist the delivery. Or sometimes the mother is fatigued or exhausted, she is unable to push due to many reasons. In that case, sometimes we need to go for the assisted vaginal delivery. or sometimes the combined causes can lead to application of these instruments. Now, regarding the classification of operative vaginal delivery, outlet forceps, there are different types of forceps. I'll show you later on. The outlet forceps which we use most commonly in our clinical practice, the classification is when the fetal scalp is visible without separating the labia, fetal skull has reached pelvic floor, sagittal suture is in the AP diameter, and the fetal head is at zero station on the perineum. So this is the indication, or this is what you will see before you apply the outlet forceps. In low forceps, leading point of the skull is at station plus 2 cm or more, but not on the pelvic floor. There are certain two subdivisions with rotation of 45 degree or less with the rotation more than 45 degree. In the middle, in the mid cavity forceps, the fetal head is no more than 1/5 palpable per abdomen, usually 0/5. We know that we have divided per abdominally. We always check the fetal head, how much it is palpable. If one part of the fetal head is gone inside, then it is called 4/5. That means 4 part is above the in the abdomen you can feel. So it is 3/5, 2/5, likewise we say. So that means that only one part is palpable abdominally, then you can only apply mid-cavity forceps, and the leading point of the skull is above station plus 2 cm, but not above ischial spine. Safety criteria for applying operative vaginal delivery. Number 1, head is less than 1/5 palpable per abdomen. We have discussed that before. The cervix is fully dilated, membranes are ruptured. Station at the level of ischial spine or below, 0, +1, +2, +1, not -1. We take ischial spine as the criteria of the station. So when we want to check the station of the head of the baby, that means before we think of the operative vaginal delivery, we have to have certain criteria which should be acceptable for the safety criteria of operative vaginal delivery. So you will check for the ischial spine. If the head is below ischial spine +1, +2, +3, then you can only think of operative vaginal delivery. If the head is above -1, -2, then it's not possible to apply the forceps or vacuum. Number 4, determine exact position of the head. So correct placement of the instrument can be achieved. Capet and molding is no more than moderate. If there is excessive capet, that means the swelling or the head is more than 3 plus, then it is not possible to apply the operative to do the operative vaginal delivery, and pelvis should be adequate. Preparation. So once you have decided that you are going to apply forceps and you have the safety criteria, so then you will explain to the mother that we are unable to deliver you spontaneously, so we are going to apply some instrument, and you should tell her clearly that in case it fails, you can go for the cesarean section as well. So ideally informed consent, even the attendant should also be consulted regarding this instrument. The bladder should be empty and appropriate anesthesia should be given to the patient. Skill, knowledge and experience of the operation is also important. Backup plan in case of failure to deliver, that means if you apply vacuum 3 times or 2 times and you find there is no progress in the labor, then it's better to abandon the procedure and go for the cesarean section. So that means you need to inform the OT, you need to inform the anesthetist that I'm going to do this. In case there is a failure to deliver, the patient may go for the cesarean section as well. So whenever you're doing applying forceps, there should be adequate facilities and access to the operation theatre should be available. Contraindications for operative vaginal deliveries when safety criteria are not met. Ventouse should not be used in gestation of less than 34 weeks pregnancy, and it should not be used for face and breech presentation. And operative vaginal delivery before full dilatation of cervix are contraindicated. That means if the patient is 6 centimeters, 7 centimeter, even 8 centimeter, you find that all around is rim or the cervix, and you can find that it's better to avoid the operative vaginal delivery, but because this can cause excessive laceration or tears of the cervix, which can lead to PPH. Now, the choice of instrument. First, you have decided, you have checked for the safety criteria, you have taken the consent, and now what is your choice of instrument? Ventouse delivery is preferred as first-line instrument in terms of reduced maternal trauma because you're going to apply ventouse on the head of the baby, so there is less chances of maternal trauma. The complications, still it has some complications. It has 10 to 20% failure to achieve a vaginal delivery. So failure chances are more with ventouse, cephal hematoma, retinal hemorrhage or subdelial hemorrhage. Forceps, complications of forceps include vaginal and perineal tear, fetal trauma. So that means if you apply forceps, because usually they are made of metal, so it can lead to, of course, you are going to pull the baby, so that can lead to, if there is no proper support or you have not applied it properly, so it can lead to excessive vaginal and perineal tear, which can lead to PPH, which can lead to infection, fetal trauma as well, and the facial palsy. That means if you have not correctly applied the blade of the forceps to the baby's head, so that can lead to trauma to the eyes, trauma to the head, trauma to the cheeks, and sometimes it can lead to facial palsy as well. The instruments, the ventouse was previously, years and years ago, ventouse was available in metallic form. And nowadays what we are using is silicone rubber cup. So that is why failure rate seems to be a more. OmniCup is a very excellent type of ventouse, but it is only applied, it is you can say used once you've used, and you have to discard that OmniCup. A little expensive, but it cannot be reused on the patient. But silicone rubber cups can be reused on the patients. Forceps is available in the form of Keelan rotational forceps, Simpson non-rotational forceps, and Wrigley's forceps. Now, Keelan rotational forceps were used to be in practice years and years ago, but I never applied these forceps, although we do ask in exam, means fellowship exams, but for the students it is a little bit higher. Then Simpson's forceps is there, and what we are using commonly and what you will see is the Wrigley's forceps, right? Wrigley's outlet forceps. You can see these in this forceps. Look here, this is the silicone forceps which we are using, but this is the OmniCup we are using, right? This is what is the forceps different. You can see how it is applied, where it is applied at the leading point, right? This is what is there. This is the way we are applying forceps. Sorry, ventouse. This is ventouse. And this is the different type of forceps. So basically the forceps have got a blade, a shank, a lock, and a handle, right? These are the blade, shank, and this is the handle and the lock. So whenever you are applying forceps, it should be locked, then only you can pull it. Look here, this is vacuum extraction, right? This is what is the different type of, this is the Keelan's forceps, rotational forceps, this is Simpson's forceps, non-rotational, and this is the outlet forceps, Wrigley's outlet forceps, which we use very commonly. The difference is here a little bit, you can see this is long, right? And the handle is also long, this is short, so this is outlet forceps. Now, we'll take questions in the end. So let's start the second thing, that is cesarean section. So cesarean section is a surgical procedure in which incisions are made through woman's abdomen and uterus to deliver the baby. So the incidence of cesarean section is 25 to 30%, and even in our setup, it is almost 25 to 30%. The classical system for emergency cesarean section, category 1. Immediate threat to the life of the woman or fetus. When you find that in case you do not do cesarean section in as quick as possible, so that can lead to threat to the life of the patient and the fetus as well. Category 2, no immediate threat to the life of woman and fetus. Category 3, requires early delivery. Category 4, at a time to suit the women and maternity services. That means elective cesarean section or the one with the previous three scars will be category 4. The indication of cesarean section is previous cesarean section. If a woman has got one cesarean section, then she can be given a trial of vaginal birth, but that will depend upon her indication of previous scar, the duration of pregnancy from first to second, that means the time interval. Number 3 also depends upon her condition as well, that at term at 36 weeks onwards you will find that there is no scar tenderness, the head is engaged, because normally after one cesarean section, when patient is going into labor and you are trying to deliver her vagina, that is called vaginal birth after cesarean section, VBAC. So you're not going to do induction of that patient. In case she doesn't have pain, you will not do induction. You cannot put Prostin to her, you cannot give her syntocinon, because that can lead to certain complications. So if a woman had a cesarean section previously due to breech presentation, and this time when you examine her, you find all is well, the head is engaged, the palace is adequate, there is no scar tenderness, there is no threat for dehiscence of scar, then you can give her a trial of labor. Number 3 is but previous three cesarean sections, there is no, it's better not to give any trial of normal labor. They should be electively to go for the cesarean section. Then comes malpresentations. Malpresentations means other than the vertex presentation, which will include breech presentation, bra presentation, shoulder presentation. Number 3 is the failure to progress in the labor. So whenever a patient is in labor, we monitor her progress either by the partograph or the doctor or the duty. Normally in our setup, the doctor is usually watches the progress in labor, but in other countries, midwives they are with the patient and then they watch the progressive labor of the patients. So in case there is failure to progress, such as patient remains 7 centimeter and 3 hours, 4 hours have passed, that means there is secondary arrest in labor, or she does not dilate more than 2.5 centimeter or 3 centimeters. So there are different indications, means there is failure to progress in the labor either due to prolonged first stage labor or due to secondary arrest. So that can be an indication of cesarean section. Suspected fetal compromise in labor, that means you find a patient has come to you with labor and you find that CTG is showing fetal bradycardia, fetal tachycardia, and she has having grade 2, grade 3 meconium. But more important is the CTG, that is suspected fetal compromise, or sometimes you find there is intrauterine growth restriction, or any other case, that means where you think that if she goes into labor, the baby will also be having problems, so that we call suspected fetal compromise in labor. Multiple pregnancy. Not all multiple pregnancies will have cesarean section. It depends upon the presentation of the first baby. If the first baby is calf, presenting by calf, and second is breech, so she can deliver normally if the palace is adequate. But if the first baby is breech, first baby is transverse, then it's better to go for cesarean section. Placenta previa means the placenta is in the lower segment, right? There is 2 minor and major previas, right? So that is also one of the indication of cesarean section, placental abruption. Again, not all patients with placental abruption will have cesarean section, but this is one of the indicators. Means maybe a patient has abruption, means the placenta is placed normally, but due to some reason it is the placenta has detached prematurely, or maybe at term the placenta has detached, so that can lead to internal bleeding inside the uterus. It's called placental abruption. These both placenta previa and abruption are the causes of antepartum hemorrhage. So that is an indication for delivery. In case the baby is alive, the patient has abruption, so we go for immediate cesarean section. But in case the abruption with the IUD, normally we try to deliver them vaginally, depending upon her circumstances, depending upon the investigation, and depending upon the severity of abruption. Then fetal disease, sometimes for the fetal problem, we have to go for cesarean section, and the maternal disease, sometimes these can also have, they may be one of the indication of cesarean section. So whenever you're planning for cesarean section or you have planned cesarean section, you must talk to the patient and the family, and because everybody would like to know why you are going for cesarean section, you need to explain them the indication. And then informed consent is very important, which require both the risk benefit to be discussed with patient and recorded on the consent form. Normally the hospitals, they have got consent form and everything is mentioned on it, either in Urdu or English. So ideally they should read, the family should read it. And as a doctor, we should also explain them about the risk and benefit. It means, of course, when you're going for any surgery, there is always a chance of complication as well. So if you will explain them and you will take consent, so that will help you in going for other problems. Preparation. Normally, cesarean section is done under spinal anesthesia. So that is regional anesthesia. General anesthesia occasionally required where regional anesthesia is contraindicated in certain form of, such as in certain form of cardiac disease, or where the patient has got some spinal injury, or where the patient has dropped her BP, is dropping her BP, she's not conscious, so sometimes general anesthesia can also be required. Urinary catheter is put in, and prophylactic antibiotic is administered intravenously prior to surgical incision. Abdominal incision or the skin incision, the skin or subcutaneous tissue is incised using a transverse curvilinear incision 2 cm breadth above the symphysis pubis, extending from and to points lateral to lateral margins of the abdominal rectus muscles. So that is called pharyngeal incision. P is silent here. So this is a transverse incision which is given 2 cm above the symphysis pubis. Subcutaneous tissues are separated by blunt dissection, rectus sheath incised transversely, recti are separated, peritoneum is incised, and abdominal cavity is open. So then transverse suprapubic incision has the advantage of improved cosmetic result, decreased analgesic requirement, and superior wound strength. So the transverse incision, which is called pharyngeal incision, is normally the most commonly incision given in gynae, in cesarean section, and even hysterectomies. Although in some cases we can go for midline vertical incision, this we are going to talk about it later on, and it has the advantage that is cosmetically it has got a better results. The risk of hernia is less, decreased analgesic requirement, and the wound strength is superior as compared to midline. A vertical incision, now coming to a vertical skin incision, what we talked about previously was the skin incision. So vertical skin incision, that is the midline or paramedian, is indicated in extreme maternal obesity, where you suspect suspicion of other abdominal pathology, where you think that there may be some other problems, or because it provides greater access to pelvic and intra-abdominal organs, or where you're suspecting a rupture of the uterus, where you're suspecting maybe the placenta is inherent and you might need to go for obstetrical hysterectomy, or incision of wound dehiscence is increased. Now coming towards the transverse incision in lower uterine segment is given, and it is easy to repair, reduce blood loss, low incision of dehiscence, rupture in the subsequent pregnancy. Then classical cesarean section is basically a vertical incision in upper uterine segment. What we do nowadays, that is LSCS, means lower segment cesarean section. That means we give incision in the lower segment. Classical cesarean section means you give incision vertically in the upper uterine segment. The indications of classical cesarean section, is lower segment obscured by fibroids, lower segment covered with dense lesions, major placenta previa, transverse lie with the back down, fetal abnormalities such as conjoined twin, cesarean section in the presence of CS cervix. The uterus is closed, then after you take out the baby, you remove the placenta, then you have to close the uterus in 2 layers, and later on the peritoneum closure may not be routine for someone, but many may close the peritoneum as well. And then the abdomen is closed in anatomical planes, skin closed with absorbable or non-absorbable sutures, depending upon the protocol of the hospital. The complications of cesarean delivery is 5 times more than that of for vaginal delivery, and especially emergency cesarean section will be having more complications than the elective. Elective means you decide before time, you give time to the patient is admitted, and there's 6 hours fasting is there. You plan it, and then that is called elective cesarean section. Emergency cesarean section means patient had come in labor, and due to some reason the labor is not progressed, there's prolonged second stage, or there's fetal compromise, or there's secondary arrest, or she started bleeding, anything like that, cord prolapse, something that will be emergency. That means there you will not worry, you will not think of the patient is NPO or not NPO. You have to do it within a certain period of time to save mother and to save the baby. So that is emergency cesarean section. So all complications will be higher in emergency cesarean section than the elective cesarean section. Now regarding complications, we can divide into intraoperative anesthesia complications, hemorrhage, sometimes there may be some damage to nearby organs, such as sometimes bladder may be injured, sometimes ureter may be involved, or sometimes gut, or maybe if the patient has excessive bleeding or due to some reason, cesarean hysterectomy can also be done. Post-operatively, the infection rate is 5 to 20-fold increased. Wound infection, hematoma formation, atelectasis, that is usually the complication of the anesthesia. Deep vein thrombosis, urinary tract infection because of the placement of catheter, endometritis, venous thromboembolism, psychological and physical morbidity, especially those patients who have got high BMI. So what happens, they usually do not get up from the bed, and then that they can cause the problem to the for the physical morbidity. So ideally, when the patient is in the operative, after operation, it's better that you should immobilize the patient as quickly as possible. That is very important. It also depends upon the patient's physique and patient's will as well. Thank you very much. So this is what we have talked about: the assisted vaginal delivery and the cesarean section, the indications, the contraindications, and all these things. So we can take questions as well. If you want to ask some questions, we can take those questions. So any questions? Ventouse, what we have in our setup, the ventouse is the silicone ventouse. When you come in the ward, we'll show you the ventouse, right? This is most commonly used in our setup because the metallic is no more used. That metallic was, they can cause damage to the fetal scalp, so it's no more used. I think, I don't know exactly, but after 15 September, I think you should talk to the coordinators or to the principal that you may be required to come for a day or two in the ward, so that at least you have some skills, hands-on skills. You can see the instruments, you can do some abdominal examination. Maybe they will keep something for you, but I think you people should finally should talk to the principal as well, so so that they can make your timetable. I don't know exactly about exams. I can't say the examination department will clearly tell you about the exams. Doctor? Thank you. Thank you, Hassan. Thank you so much. But after the you are coming to the university, you can come to our ward, no problem. On the ward day, we can explain you, we can tell you, no problem, doctor. We are there to help you out. Okay, thank you. Thank you. What? Jahan? There is no pill that you can put that is actually a pastries, right? No, not to increase the chance of conceiving. That is usually for the induction of labor. We put pastries so that the bishop becomes good, and for the chance of conceiving, there is no pastry, but there is no pastry. We have got progesterone pastries. We have got pastries, prostaglandin pastries. There must be something else, not for conceiving. No, maybe if she has some infection, sort of infection, then for the infection we do give canestrine pastries and all these pastries, but that is not for the conception, not for conceiving. That is just to infection, to cure the infection.
हेलो
जी वजह
जी मैडम एंड कर दी क्या?
हो गया, मेरा क्वेश्चन आंसर्स भी सब हो गए.
चलें सही है, मैं एंड कर देता हूँ.
ओके, थैंक यू.